All right, this is part two of how to deal with debt collectors, and this is Portnoff Law Associates. This will be video two. So in the first video, I filed against Mr. David D. Dugan, and what you want to do is your state bar. They'll have a search website up there. You could search for these attorneys, and they're pretty. I mean, pretty quick to get their information up, and it'll tell you his name, full name, that's his bar number right there, his attorney ID number. And it'll, if you broke it down into districts, it'll tell you what district. And here in Pennsylvania, there's like 4 districts, so you got to report the grievance to the right district. And it'll tell you that he's insured. Good, because I'm going to tap his insurance bond right there, Mr. Dugan. So I filed the first one against David. Those files are up there. And then I went after his boss and the owner of the law firm, my buddy here. Look, it's her law firm, Michelle Portnoff. So I just rang her bell. Michelle got her bell rung Friday. That went in. That went in late though. That went in about. Didn't get in like right before 6 o'clock. But I looked her information up too, and you can see there's Michelle's information. Here's her ID number. There's her address, and look, you got the fax number too. And hats off to Brett Fountain, because he turned me on to this. Instead of mailing these to these, because the law firm, what I do is I send a copy to the judicial board in Pennsylvania. It's basically the state Supreme Court has a review board that vets these attorneys. So they have a fax number too, and they just sometimes they don't publicize it. It's not even on the document that you download. So when I called up, I actually asked, and the woman told me, yeah, they do have a fax number. So I got the fax number for that district. So I've started faxing my bar grievances into them. See, the disciplinary board of Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to highly recommend get yourself a fax service. Now, the cheapest one I found, and I just signed up for today, it's only $10 a month. But it says unlimited number of faxes. And a lot of these fax services, e-fax services, they'll limit you to about 150 pages, some to 300 pages, and one I've seen at 500 pages. But this is the only one I've seen. I mean, it actually are much higher prices. This is the only one I've seen for $10, unlimited number of faxes, and it looks like a cool little setup. Nice little address book. The composed fax thing, it's got a nice little cover sheet. So I think this more than pays for itself for $10. What you would spend in stamps and the aggravation of printing paper out and putting it in the envelope and having to address it, and this is much easier. So I've taken this route. So after I file a copy with the judicial board, or with the attorney complaint board, let's say, after I file that copy, I also send a copy to the attorney themselves, because I like them to see what I'm doing. I want them to know. And Brett had an idea, and I mean, I think he does it, but it actually coincided with something I was thinking about, just more on a little more grander scale. Because basically what we're doing is we're filing mail fraud complaints against these people. We're going to be doing securities fraud complaints. And then we're going to do affidavits of fact, affidavit of status, notice of deficiencies and irregularities, and your notice of claim. And then we're going to walk down the line, state criminal complaints. And there's specific state criminal complaints. And I'm going to spell them out here. I'm going to make a chart up. Here's my idea. We're going to put these all on a chart from start to finish, top to bottom. By the time we're done, it might be like 30 elements on there. But what you're going to do is you're going to put the name at the top with all the just like a spreadsheet with the names running, with all the events running down there. Filed a mail fraud complaint, filed a securities fraud complaint, affidavit of fact, affidavit of status, blah blah blah. State criminal complaints, list them all out. Federal criminal complaints, list them all out. And then at the bottom you put Title 42, Section 1983 lawsuit. That'll be the last one. And as you go through and do each one, you just put the date next to it that it was completed. And you can put a little notes there, what the pending thing is. So if they default on your affidavit, you could state, defaulted as of this date. So I like this death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of theory, where as I send these attorneys each thing, I'm going to send them this master sheet, just like they like to send us their fee sheet, their fee schedule sheet. They love their fee schedule sheet. So we're going to send them our little fee schedule sheet, but I don't even have to put numbers on mine. I'm just going to put listings of things that we're going to do there. And as I do each one, I'm going to fill it in there, and I'm going to give them an updated copy each time I send them a fax and say, hey, here's the forgery criminal complaint I filed against you. Oh, official oppression's coming up next. You're going to get that one next. So that when he looks at that, he's going to have that oh my God moment. This guy's a maniac. He's either a maniac or he's very dangerous. And listen, what these attorneys are doing is complete fraud. They are running in these courts and getting these summary judgments against you based on acts of the legislature that have nothing to do with you. Acts that they couldn't prove to save their life when they got in court. Could they attach that act to you? But they're running into that little court there, getting their little summary judgment, and the court, the corrupt court that works with them, their municipal courts, the office is issuing the judgment. Well, I said, is that Mr. or Mrs. Office that issued that judgment? Because I actually had to put a Pennsylvania right to know record request in the other day to actually try and get a name of who issued this judgment. Because I can't get a name from this woman. I can't get a name from the clerk. Imagine that, man. What's so hard about giving me a name? So somebody's responsible for that judgment. The judgment didn't issue itself. I mean, somebody in that office issued it, and they don't want to give me a name. So that, like I said, that's when you could tell you're sort of over the target. When they don't want to give you basic information, because if everything they were doing was above board, they would happily give you names. They wouldn't be trying to hide things. So the cool thing I did with this one is the first one I cited for David was Rule 8.4. This is Pennsylvania. Your state's going to have maybe different numbers. Very similar though. 8.4. It is professional misconduct for a lawyer to commit a criminal act. Stunning! They commit them constantly. That reflects adversely on the lawyer's honesty, trustworthiness, or fitness as a lawyer in other respects. So then I go through and state, on or about 8th of January, Dugan committed criminal acts that reflect adversely on his honesty, trustworthiness, and fitness to be a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. This is all up there on the previous one I posted. And the cool thing I did with this is since this is about crimes, hey, malfraud's a crime, and it falls under Title 18 penal codes, criminal codes. So that allowed me, by citing this criminal one, it actually allowed me to fold in the malfraud complaint with this. Because the three statutes, there's three Title 18 statutes that deal with malfraud. And that's exactly what this guy did. He committed malfraud, in addition to a bunch of other crimes. So by me citing this one as my first thing going after him, the crime one, it actually allowed me to, let me see if I can have it in here, find it. It actually allowed me to cite the malfraud stuff in here. It's in here somewhere. There it is. So actually, with the malfraud complaint, I'll show you how I set these up. I mean, everyone does them differently, but I'll show you how I did the attorney complaint or bar agreements. So I actually included the malfraud one in here, and I'll do that with Michelle's. I'll show you how we set that up. So listen, the idea is, listen, this guy violated many. When you go and look at the bar grievance things, there's many codes that he violated of the bar grievances. But like Brett said, you don't want to do, like, if he has like 10 things, you don't want to do them all at once, because they're going to consider it one incident. Like Brett does one every 31 days. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do one, and then 31 days later, he's going to get another one. And then 31 days later, he's going to get another one. So every 31 days, he's going to get a bar grievance filed against him. It's sort of death by 1,000 cuts. And they're all valid. I mean, all these bar grievances are valid. These are not like, these are not minor things he's doing. These are major crimes that they're committing. So you want to trickle them in, and you want to get their attention. And the beautiful part with that list I told you about is, as you trickle them in, you can just update your little date there and send him a copy as you fax your copy over to him. And he goes, oh, that SOB, look what he did. He sent another one in. Now, all of a sudden, he and she, his boss, they're going to be a little worried about how they deal with you now, because they know you are not one of the average monkeys. And when they read your text here, like the stuff I put in here, they're going to know you got them dead to rights, because what they're doing is fraud. And they just don't think the monkeys know about this fraud, because they just think they own and they control you, because they got bar cards. They're special magical beings. They went to law school. They're, you're a dummy, and you're not on their level. This is how they perceive you, basically. So we're gonna teach them a little lesson and show them, hey, you know what? We learned a little trick. So we know how to tap your bar card, well, how to tap your indemnity insurance. So let's go look at Michelle. So after I do David, I go after the big boss. because she's responsible for him. And what you're going to see, what I did here, is, where's hers at? There she goes. So it's pretty much the same layout as David's. And I put her information in here, and I state she had a duty and obligation to file an attorney complaint, a grievance against Mr. Dugan, and to notify the appropriate professional authorities. This is what their code says. Portnoff failed to report Dugan's professional misconduct and violated Rule 8.3a, reporting professional misconduct. And it states right there, a lawyer who knows that another lawyer has committed a violation of the rules of professional conduct that raises a substantial question as to a lawyer's honesty, trustworthiness, or fitness as a lawyer in other respects, shall inform the appropriate professional authority. Well, listen, the truth of it is they're all in cahoots together. They're working together. Okay, so she knows exactly what he's doing, that her attorneys, these people that are, I hate to call them people, it's an insult to people, but these pettifogger shysters that are working for her here, okay, these are all criminals. These are all criminals. They're just running over people's rights because that's what they were taught they're allowed to do, because they're special beings. They're special magical beings with bar cards. So Michelle's going to get her little thing filed here, and I'll walk you through it from start to finish, what Michelle got. So the one this is the one I sent to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, the review board. The only difference between this one and the one I actually sent to Michelle was there's a notice of claim in the one I sent to Michelle. I think it was for about $269,000. It was the value of whatever Zillow had for my one property. Because I look at it this way: hey, you want to tinker with my property? You're going to try and cloud my title? I'm going to charge you full price for the property. You don't like my prices? Don't do business with me. Stay out of my life. Stay out of my business. You tinker with me? I'm very expensive to deal with. So she got hit with a $269,000 pop, and so did Mr. David D. Dugan, and I had a $10,000 claim against him before. So this is going to start to add up for little Portnoff associates over here. By the time I get done with these guys, they're lucky if they have a law firm, because I'm just gonna keep filing complaints in their bar grievances and criminal complaints. And when I sue them through Title 42, 1983, I'm gonna knock them on their rear ends, because I could prove what they did is fraud. So this is the standard complaint form for Pennsylvania. See, it's broken down into 4 districts, and the cool thing with that little list up here is it tells you, look what district they're in. District 2. So, great. Because otherwise, I got to look at a map and try and figure out where King of Prussia is in her little 4-district breakout there. So she's in District 2, so I know this is the place. So I just gave him a call, got the fax number, and put him in my little fax program over there, and that's who I fax my documents to. And just the standard. This one's a real basic one. I mean, Texas is a little more elaborate. This one's pretty basic. So you put your information in there. You put the attorney you're complaining of's information in there. And the attorney, this is basically if they represented you. And a lot of this stuff is these people don't represent you. They're actually the ones coming at you. So this will be left blank. And they ask if you had filed any kind of previous complaint in this matter. So I said yes. I filed a complaint against David Dugan. I got his bar number on 429, which was a day before hers, for violation of 8.4 misconduct B. I said it was just filed, so there's no action, because they're asking you what actions were taken. So they got them back to back. And I basically, this is what they want you to tell them. Look at a little space. They want you to tell them what happened in here. Are you kidding? These criminals create so many crimes. You need pages to fill this in, not this. So I just put her name and her bar number, and I put the enclosures. They're getting the attorney complaint form, which is the actual form you just looked at. That's their form. And then they're going to get a statement of complaint, because that's what they're asking for, a statement of complaint. But I do my own on a separate page. And I support it by a declaration of fact. Now, the reason I don't do an affidavit, because I don't want to run out and spend $5 every time I have to do bar grievances, because I'm going to be doing these like chiclets. There's going to be numerous ones of these, so I don't want to run out and spend $5 every time I got to do one of these. So I'm just going to support it by a declaration. And I'm going to support it under federal code, where basically I state, and it actually has the weight of an affidavit. And it'll say that right in the code that you cite. that your declaration does have the weight of an affidavit, because you're just basically stating that I swear that based under the penalties of perjury, everything I put down here is true. And this is something the attorney's never going to do. And like I told you before, just because I cited the first one here, there's so many grievances I could have banged him with, but since the first one here has to do with crimes, well, mail fraud's a crime. So that allowed me to sort of combine the mail fraud complaint in with this. When I say combine, I still send the mail fraud complaint to the postal inspector, the crimes division. Doesn't mean I submit it in with the attorney board. I'm just giving them a copy, basically, to just let them know. That's why I said copy a mail fraud report. Just let them know, hey, there's other processes underway here. This is going to get real bad for this guy. So if you guys want to try and protect him, look at what I'm going to do to this guy, because I'm stating state, federal, and common law crimes he committed here. And look, I'm already underway with filing mail fraud complaints. And then I'm going to go file a Security and Exchange Commission complaint for securities fraud, because that's what he did. And oh, by the way, we always include our little trustee affidavit of status. So we remove all presumptions of who we are, because that's how they work. They operate under presumptions of something that we're not. So then I date it, and I do the little name thing. And like I said, the easiest way to do this, get yourself a scanner, sign a piece of paper, put your thumbprint on there, do a scan, and make a graphic out of it, and then import it as a graphic every time you have a document. So you're not driving yourself crazy signing, 10 documents and having to with ink all over your fingers. A lot easier to do it this way. So once I got this up there, this is their paperwork. Now this is my sheet. So I got my address up there, and I tell them who the attorney is, their bar number, and I'm just going to refer to it as Portnoff from here on after. That's what that means, here and after Portnoff. The address of the law firm, and attorney complaint grievance. Okay. So it's just gives an overview of what's going on, what the bar grievance is about. And really what I'm doing here is it's pretty much the same one it's almost like, let's say it's 95% identical to the one I filed for David D. Dugan. But what I'm doing here is I'm pretty much taking the same text and I'm adding to it by stating on 1/8/2021, Portnoff, meaning Michelle Robin Portnoff, condoned Dugan to forge a lien because she's responsible for his actions. That's her guy. That's her underling. Okay. Now, she knows what he's doing, and this is how she makes her living. She's a parasite. This is how she makes her living. She's a parasite that makes her living on the backs of other men and women that don't know any better, that have been deceived. So she's sending her little henchman out there to her little parasite to go deceive the masses. And so she knew exactly what he's doing. So listen, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. What he filed against my property, it's forgery. It can't be argued any other way, because the only way it couldn't be forgery is if there was a court judgment that it was a judge that I owed a debt to somebody, and then if I didn't pay that debt, then they could come file a lien against me. But there's no such case, and that's called a res judicata case. RESJUDICATA, res judicata. So I'll state in here, you'll see my paperwork, there's no res judicata case where it's been adjudged that a debt is owed for a lien to have been created. How can you create a lien when you never had a debt? Well, Mr. Dugan is creating a debt basically out of his mind. He's just deciding that some code that he wasn't there when they wrote, whatever it is, municipal tax lien law, whatever it is, he wasn't there when they wrote it. He's got no personal knowledge of it, but he's going to read that code and decide that, yep, that code applies to myself and my property. Not only is he going to judge that it applies to me and my property, he's going to impose it upon me. And he don't have any authority to do such thing. I don't care if he's an attorney. I don't care if he calls himself the King of England or the King of America. He don't have the authority to do anything. He's just another man. I don't care about his job. His job actually puts him at a disadvantage to a man or woman. His title doesn't mean anything. His old little Esquire thing, and that, I actually bang him in here about that too, is Esquire has no force in law. It's meaningless, so why is it sitting next to your name? Why would you put a meaningless thing next to your name? That you're supposed to impress people? That's put in there to try and intimidate you. That he's some great law mind, and he knows what he's doing, and watch out, Mr. Esquire is going to come to get you. Mr. Esquire doesn't know his rear end from a hole in the ground. And that's the sad part about this. These people are supposed to be educated people that come out of these prestigious law schools, and they don't know. They have no clue what the real law is. They just are so indoctrinated into the system, and that's how they were trained. That's how they were taught. So basically, I'm just taking pretty much the same one I filed against David, and I'm just adding her into it. Hey, Portnoff condoned Dugan to file his forged lien with the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. Portnoff condoned Dugan to file his forged lien in the name of a fictitious plaintiff doing business as Beverly Park against my property, which constituted criminal fraud. As the Beverly Park, a corporate fiction, cannot be a litigant in an alleged in rem proceeding against my property, as the Beverly Park corporate fiction has no rights to my property. Now, this is the big term here you're going to see a lot in these little municipal liens they file. They filed and called an in rem proceeding. That means against the property. That alone is a violation of your due process rights to file something against your property. Now, the only one that could ever file an in rem proceeding is someone that has rights within the property already. You must have rights in the property to bring an in rem action. If you don't have rights in the property, you can't bring an in rem action. There's no way Dugan or the Beverly Park, it's not a snowball's chance in hell that they can walk into court and show that they have rights in my property. So this in rem proceeding, totally, this is a simulation of legal process. This is total fraud, what he's doing here. So I just walk him down, same thing. Like I said, this is pretty much the same things I have for Dugan, but this is hers. Portnoff condoned Dugan to file his forged lien, blah, blah, blah. So I just walk him through, and this is the power of the affidavits, why we do the affidavits too, because, listen, this dummy, okay, a lot of times these law firms, these boroughs and townships hire out these law firms to do these collections for them. And they might have one attorney for, that handles one part of their business, and then they hire this little parasitic law firm to do the collections for their slaves. And the little parasitic law firm has no idea that you've got these people in default. These people calling themselves the borough or the township, they have no idea that you've got them in default. And they're working with blinders because the computer spit your name out. I was the next one up for Mr. Dugan, and he grabbed the sheet and he said, "Oh, I got Mr. Fajoa," and he has no clue what's going on. So in my complaint here, I basically state, Portnoff condoned Dugan ignoring the fact that the persons doing business in the Beverly Park are already in commercial default on a notice of claim of $750,000. And that's after the one I sent them for $400,000. This was involving my roofing job. And if you don't think this stuff has an effect, see this $400,000 claim? That made it out to their insurance company in Iowa, who then passed it on to a law firm, who then contacted me and said, "They didn't do anything wrong. We don't wish to settle with you at this time." And that got the law firm a $100,000 claim, because what's a law firm in Iowa doing involved in my property and telling some corporation that they could walk on my property? Who the hell is that guy out in Iowa telling them they can walk on my property and stop roofing jobs, stop contracts? So that garnered them a $100,000 claim. So they're in default on that. They're sort of in limbo. This is still sitting at the insurance company. Now I know who the insurance company is. Now I'm going to target the insurance company. I'm going to start to squeeze them. And that's part of what this process is. You're starting to see it wind down. I'm going to start to close them in. And so there's the $750 on top of that. And I don't know if these people, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if this insurance company handles this one too, because this has to do with the building code guys, and they might have a separate insurance than what this stuff has to do with the tax stuff. So like I said, I don't know if it's a different insurance company. I don't really care. All I know is there's a $750,000 claim in there that now they're going to get pressed on. So if it's these guys, they're really not going to be happy, because they're looking at over $1 million of claims. If it's another insurance company, they're still not going to be happy. Because there's no way this guy or these people doing business at Beverly Park can step up and claim that they don't have to answer affidavits, that they could just make claims against the property because some act written by the legislature in Pennsylvania gave them authority. Bull. Okay, no such thing. That somebody wrote, some legislature wrote something down on a piece of paper and made a claim against me, and that in itself is a lie, because they'll point to that act, But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that act that the legislature wrote. That legislature doesn't have my name in the act, doesn't have my address in the act. That legislature's not making a claim against me. Okay, that the Pennsylvania legislature has made no claims against me. I have no beef with the Pennsylvania legislature. My beef is with these idiots, Dugan and Portnoff, who looked at that stuff that the legislature wrote, because it's written with ambiguous language, so people can interpret things, and that's what these people do. So somehow I got interpreted as one of the Beverly Park subjects or citizens or residents. So Dugan and Portnoff took it upon themselves to decide, yep, I'm under control of this corporation called Beverly Park, and so is my property under their control. And because I'm under their control, they have this right to go forge this lien against my property without any due process of law and without a trial, right to a trial by jury, which is for Pennsylvania, it's Article 1, Section 6. Right to a trial by jury shall be inviolate, which means permanent, can't be changed. And if you look at the federal Constitution, it's Article 1, Amendment 7, which has to do with civil cases and suits at common law of $20 or more. You're entitled to a trial by jury in all matters. So Portnoff and Dugan took it upon themselves to decide, nope, we get to skip that state constitution thingy and the federal constitution thingy, and we could just do our own thing, because we got the rules of civil procedure on our side. Our buddies made the rules of civil procedure, and we're just going to follow that, and we're just going to railroad people. So this is how they operate, and they're not used to seeing one of the monkeys run at them. Because, like I said, if you're on defense, it's literally like trying to win a fight without being able to throw a punch. I mean, you got to hope the other guy punches himself out and has a heart attack, which that's not a good chance. And if you're going to stay on defense, they're just going to keep punching you. So when you start filing these stuff like this, these bar grievances and criminal complaints, because guess what's after this? After I file these bar grievances, I spelled out all the crimes in here. And after I hit all the crimes, I'm going to start trickling them in. First one's going to be forgery. There's a Pennsylvania statute for forgery, and they meet it. So I'm going to file a forgery claim against Mr. Dugan. And God forbid for Mr. Dugan, if I get one of these criminal things to stick to him, and I don't think it's going to be hard because he's got really no defense, he might not be an attorney no more, or he may not have insurance anymore. And both are going to allow him not to be an attorney. And so I go through, it's pretty much, like I said, mimicking what I put in Dugan's. And the real powerful stuff here is when I start hitting the crimes. Let me find it down here. And you're going to see I cite basically what they're doing is, like, look, it's one part. I have no contract obligation to acknowledge or adhere or to be governed by ordinances. Because what they're doing is they're operating under the Beverly Park's ordinances. So these two lunkhead attorneys are coming in claiming that I'm under jurisdiction of Beverly Park and my property's under jurisdiction of Beverly Park. They don't have any authority to decide jurisdiction to attorneys. If they had a claim like that, they would have to sue me in court and go first prove it in court that I'm under the jurisdiction of these people before they could move forward. But they didn't do that. They just moved forward without that proof, without making that proof through an actual valid suit, a legal process, a valid legal process. So I said any such claims that Portnoff, Dugan, and persons doing business as Portnoff Law Associates in the Beverly Park need to first be adjudicated in a trial by jury. This constitutes a simulation of a legal process. It's exactly what they're doing, and violates it's Pennsylvania, Article 1, Sections 1, 6, 8, and 11 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. 1's your right to acquire and protect property. 6 is your right to a trial by jury. 8 is an unlawful search and seizure, because that's what they're doing. They're seizing your rights, and they're trying to seize your capital, your money. And 11 is the right to due process. And there's no due process going on when they're running in and getting summary judgments without a trial and without any signature to judgment. You don't know who signed the judgment. The Office of Judicial Support signed it. Well, that's not a man or woman. I don't know who issued that. And who in an office decided they had authority to issue judgments against me without trials? Somebody in that court's office, that judicial support, made a decision that they could just bypass my right to a trial by jury. And if you remember Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Clause 2, For them, the Constitution, federal Constitution, supreme law of the land, trumps the state constitution, and it trumps all laws, statutes, codes, and ordinances. And anything in conflict with the federal Constitution, which is your right to trial by jury, is notwithstanding. So everything Mr. Dugan and Ms. Portnoff did here is notwithstanding. And they're not going to be standing soon because they're headed for a lot of trouble here. And here we go into the criminal codes. And this is actually going to be broken down into a separate criminal complaint. And you want to do, just like the bar agreements, you want to do one criminal complaint at a time. Trickle them in on them. So I'm going to hit him with forgery first. Look, Portnoff condoned Dugan committing forgery under Pennsylvania Title 18, 4101 by creating and filing an unadjudicated, which means there's never a trial, and an unverified, which means nobody from the Borough of Ridley Park wrote down on any kind of document that I owed a debt to anybody. There's no such document. So it's unadjudicated and it's unverified. So then how do we get to a lien? If nobody verified anything and there's never been a trial, how do we get here? We can't get there. Because the only way we can get to here is through a trial by jury. And somebody's got to, before they even get to the trial by jury, they first have to verify the pleading that it's true, that a debt is owed, and then we must adjudicate it to get to here. So basically, you think about this: 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. They jumped right to number 3, to the lien. They skipped 1, 2, and they just jumped right to 3. And I state, no law, statute, code, or ordinance granted or ever could grant Portnoff or Dugan jurisdiction and authority to create an unadjudicated and unverified lien against my property. You're just not going to be able to argue with that. There's nobody going to step forward and say, well, no, this act gave us authority to do this to you. Because they weren't there when that act was written. They have no personal knowledge of the act. And nobody's going to be able to step forward and state how a piece of paper called an act that nobody knows who wrote. I mean, you just say the legislature wrote it. That's not a who. That's a thing. So nobody knows who exactly wrote that thing and how that individual has authority over myself or my property, because it doesn't exist. It's all done under presumption, and it's all done under your ignorance. And this is what they've done to us. Through schooling, through media, through your family, they've dumbed us down to believing that these attorneys have these special powers. They're magical beings that can just do these incredible things. And look, he put Esquire next to his name, so don't you dare question him. He's an Esquire. You're just a little peon. You don't question the Esquire. And that's what that's done for. It's just intimidation. So these are just some of the state crimes. Look, you got forgery, then you have official oppression, and you're going to have very similar ones in your state, if not identical. Look, then you got barratry. This is a vexatious suit, meaning that he brought a suit with, there's no merit to the suit. That's what a vexatious suit is. Look, then we move on to defrauding secure creditors. Well, listen, I own the property outright. There's no mortgage on that property. There's no debt on that property. So I will talk to them in their little code words by stating, I'm the responsible party and holder in due course. Right there. And look, I'm the sole secured creditor. And I actually state in one document, I'm the sole beneficiary of that property, because nobody else has an interest in that property. I'm superior claim in that property. I'm king in that property. Nobody could walk into court and overtake me in the claim of this property. It's mine. There's no doubt about it. Not Dugan, not Portnoff, and not some fiction called Beverly Park can walk in there and surpass my claim. Can't happen. So he's defrauding a secure creditor. It's another state crime. Deceptive or fraudulent business practices. Bang, right up their alley. Look, by facilitating him to make or induce others to rely on false and misleading statements for the purpose of obtaining my property and credit. Isn't that what he did? He forged the document and got the court to sign off on it. Somebody in the Office of Judicial Support to sign off on it when it's a fraudulent claim, because remember, we can't get to the lien without the verification and the adjudication first. So we couldn't have got to the lien. So right there, that's a deceptive business practice. And look what he did. Here's another crime: securing execution of documents by deception. Didn't he do that? Isn't he securing execution of documents by deception? He presented to the court, this little municipal court, that he had a valid lien to submit against me. And he has no lien, because there was never a verification, never adjudication, so there can never be a lien. But yet he submitted it as a lien. So look, he secured execution of documents by deception. See how this starts to multiply and get worse for them? And guess what? A lot of misunderstandings about identity theft. Now, you tell me if it's identity theft. Under Pennsylvania Title 184120. Look, Portnoff condoned Dugan committing the offense of identity theft against my 2 deceased parents. What a dirtball. He's so stupid, he had no idea, because he's going off public records. I have no responsibility to update public records when my dad and my mom passed. Not my responsibility. They're not my records. Why would I update them? Like I said, as long as I'm holding the deed, it's my claim. Nobody going to be able to come into court against me over those properties. And I also mentioned myself in here. And look, by possessing and using, look, through any means, identifying information of the foregoing without their consent to further his unlawful forged lien against my property. Well, I know my mom and dad didn't grant him, unless he ran out to the cemetery and, did a seance and got approval somehow. So I know my mom and dad didn't do it. And I know I didn't give him consent. And yet he pulled up property information about my property. And the little dirtball tried to use it to extort money from me and make threats against me. And then he had the nerve and the audacity to send me a fee schedule. Like I'm responsible for his fee schedule. Like I'm his little peon. It's really amazing when you look at what these people do. And then I move them on to federal, and this is where it gets really bad, because these are really these are going to go your state and also your federal stuff. This is going to go in your Title 42, your 1983 suit. So when you're doing these individual criminal complaints, in a way you're almost pre-doing the work for your federal suit, because when you get them all written up, well, gee, now you got all the individual complaints written up, and now you're going to transfer them over to your Title 42 1983 suit and support them with documents and exhibits. So here we go, some mail fraud complaints right here. It's called frauds and swindle. Look, 18 U.S. Code 1341, frauds and swindle. Now these are going to, no matter what state you're in the United States of America, these are going to apply for you. You can use these. These are mail fraud complaints. Frauds and swindle, 18 U.S. Code 1342, fictitious name or address. Well, gee, didn't they make the claim in the name of a fictitious entity? Fictitious name. 18 U.S. Code 876, mailing threatening communications. We're going to lien your property. We're going to charge you this money unless you pay us by this date. They're threats. These are threats these people are making. Listen, this is not how you get paid. You don't threaten people through the mail to get paid. You file standard legal process. You sue them in a court of law. You file a complaint or a claim with the court, and you have a summons attached, and you have a process server serve that man or woman so that they can see a copy of the complaint and know who's suing them, and they have a date on there of when they can come to court to defend themselves. But like I said, even then, a lot of times you can blow it out of the water before you ever have to show up to court. But you still got to be given the notice and process, which is by the process server, with the complaint and the summons to defend yourself. And that's not what he's done here. These people are making threats to the mail. Hey, pay us or we're going to do these bad things to you. That's called extortion. These are threats through the mail. And then we move on to the other criminal codes, and I've actually folded these back into here. Portnoff condoned Dugan to do the following. Conspiracy against rights. This is a big one. 241 and 1842. 18242. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Isn't this the color of law? Isn't this the definition of the color of law? Because I already told you what law is. If you got a complaint, you got to go file it with the court, attach a summons, and have a process server serve somebody. That's legal process, standard legal process. Sending me something in the mail, not even certified mail, just in the mail, from some pettifogger shyster who's got no jurisdiction, standing, or personal knowledge of anything in the matter, and then just walking into court and getting a summary judgment with no trial, all right, and no due process afforded to me, that's a simulation of legal process. So that's a deprivation of my rights under color of law. It's a deprivation of your rights under color of law. And then you have 1341, frauds and swindle, which ties back into the mail fraud. 18-2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. And this has to do with documents. And I consider this, he removed whatever documents he had against my parents there and myself to make this claim. He put some kind of records thing in, request, whatever. And they're my private records, and he has no authority to be messing with my private records. Then you have 2073, false entries and reports of monies or securities. Ooh, this is right up the alley of what he's doing. False reports of monies and securities. There is no debt owed to these people. Yet he's trying to create a controversy where none exists. Not only where none exist, where one was already addressed in 2 affidavits, actually 3 affidavits when you consider the law firm's affidavit. So there's 3 affidavits in this matter. These people are in default, and they're just going to keep walking through these affidavits. Good luck with that. We'll see how this works out for you guys in federal district court. And then we go to 513, securities of the state and private entities. That's a private entity, basically. The Borough of Ridley Park, that's not a government. Your local borough and township are not governments. They are private municipal corporations masquerading as governments. Say that again. They're private municipal corporations masquerading as governments, but they're doing it at the barrel of a gun. Hey, pay us, or we're going to do these very bad things to you. Then we go to 514, fictitious obligations. Isn't that a fictitious obligation, what he's doing, claiming that I owe these people money for something? There's no evidence that I have a contract or any kind of obligation with a corporation, and there's no way my proximity, just because I live in the geographic region of Pennsylvania where I'm at, does not attach me to another entity. In other words, doesn't give them the right to forcibly control me because I'm not living on the Borough of Ridley Park's land. That's not their land. The Borough of Ridley Park is a piece of paper that exists only on paper with a Dun & Bradstreet number. They are not the geographic region known as Ridley Park. That's why one's called Ridley Park and one's called the Borough of Ridley Park. Remember, if you're of something, you can't be the thing. So if I'm of my parents, I can't be my parents. Well, if they're of Ridley Park, they can't be Ridley Park. They're of Ridley Park. They're a separate entity as opposed to what Ridley Park is. Ridley Park's the physical geographic land. It's a little lines they drew on a map and said, oh, this geographic physical land is Ridley Park. But that's not the Borough of Ridley Park. That's sort of the Borough of Ridley Park's sort of like McDonald's or Taco Bell. And they're trying to claim because I live near Taco Bell or McDonald's or Borough of Ridley Park that my proximity creates an obligation upon me. And like the example we gave before, it's like a church saying you live in their parish, so you have to send them $100 a week because you live 3 blocks away from the church. You're in their parish, and that's the same thing the borough and your townships are doing with you. Hey, you live in our little lines we drew around you, and you have to send us money because you're in our lines. Poppycock nonsense. So then we go in 876, mailing, threatening communications, and 18 U.S. Code 1001, statements or entries generally. And what this has to do is false statements made by these people. And they're numerous. So this is a good one too. 1001 is very good. And then there's also common law crimes that they commit. This is an abusive process. In other words, what we already talked about what the court process is. You go file a complaint. You have a summons attached. The clerk stamps the summons. You give copies to a process server, and he goes and serves the parties who you need to be served. That's process. But what they're doing here, this is an abuse of process. This is an abuse of the court's process, what they're doing. This is not how court cases are initiated. So it's an abuse of the court's process. It's a conspiracy. In other words, conspiracy is 2 or more people working in tandem. So you've got this law firm, both Michelle and David here, working with the Borough of Ridley Park and those pettifogger shysters at the borough, the council, whoever supposedly runs the borough. So they're working in, they're working in cahoots with them. So that's a conspiracy. It's constructive fraud, and you can look at the details what the elements of constructive fraud are. That means basically not blatant fraud, but done basically constructive. Put it this way, making people wear a mask I would consider that constructive battery. In other words, they're not physically putting the mask on you, but they're forcing you to wear the mask. So if somebody forces you to wear the mask, that would be constructive battery. In other words, they're not battering you directly, but they're battering you indirectly. That would be constructive. That's constructive battery. And a lot of what they're doing in here, it's called constructive fraud. And it's flat out fraud unto itself too. But it's fraud and it's constructive fraud. Listen, they're filing papers against me, and they send the constable out to your house, and your neighbors see the constable come out. Well, that's a defamation of your character. In other words, your neighbors wondering what's going on with this guy. Is he in trouble? Is he financial trouble? Is he a lowlife? He's not paying his bills. Because that's what that's all meant to be when they send out these constables. And these notices, they hang stuff on people's doors, yellow things on people's doors saying, "Now you owe money." That's a defamation of your character. Because that's not how you collect debts. Like we said, you collect debts through a court, through trial by jury, and when they get a judgment, if they win, they get a judgment, and then they can collect their judgment. That's how you collect judgments. You don't collect judgments by sending constables to your house and by making threats to the United States Postal Service. It's definitely duress. They have you under duress. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have you under duress. Because this stuff's stressing you. Basically, they're trying to say, hey, listen, we're going to come take your property. We're going to do this to you. We're going to lien your property. That's duress. Because like we said, you don't collect judgments that way. But they're trying to put you under duress to collect their money that way. This is the mob trying to collect their money without going through the proper process. We addressed fraud. We know it's fraud. Is it an infliction of emotional distress? That's another cause of action. Heck yeah. I mean, yeah. Is anybody happy when they got people threatening to take their home or threatening to place liens on their house or sending constables to their house? That's emotional distress. And it's definitely an invasion of your privacy. You have a right. That Constitution gives you a right to be left alone. If you're not harming anybody, not bothering anybody, they should leave you alone. But that's not what they're doing. It's an invasion of your privacy. And it's definitely negligence. Because even in their own charters, these counties' charters and these boroughs' charters, it'll state that they have to follow the state and federal constitution. Well, they're not following any state or federal constitution here. That's their duty to understand that. They're supposed to know what they're doing, and they don't. Remember, I said these are button pushers that don't understand what they're doing. So it's negligence on their part. And I state here, look, Portnoff and Dugan have simulated and continue to simulate legal process and asserting rights that neither they possess nor their alleged client, Beverly Park, possess. Not only is there no evidence of a debt existing for a lien to have been created, there's no witness to any of these vexatious claims. Remember, in every matter, which I keep trying to drive home in your heads, there's got to be a witness on the other side. You can't get evidence into the record without there being a witness. And documents are not witnesses. Unless somebody could testify to the validity of that document. That's the same thing with an affidavit. Even though it's an out-of-court sworn testimony, it doesn't count until you could submit that affidavit, but then you got to come into court and get it on the court record. The power of the affidavit is you're basically telling them, hey, listen, I'm willing to go to jail for what I wrote on this piece of paper, and I'll come into court and testify to it. There's nobody on the other side that's ever going to do that. Not the borough, who don't exist. No man working for the borough is going to do that. And the attorney can't do it. He's got no personal knowledge. He can't be a witness in the matter. So if there's no witnesses on that side, they can't get evidence in the record. You got to have evidence to win a case. You need that. Evidence is facts. So you need cases are won by law and facts. And just because they cite some act or statute, they haven't proven it applies to me. They could never prove it applies to me. It's a ridiculous claim because like we talked about over and over again, if I could write something down on a piece of paper and magically make it apply to you, you would be my property. And we know that's not true. So the only other way that document could apply to you is if we had a contract. And I'm pretty sure you don't have contracts with I know I don't have contracts with my borough, and I'm pretty sure you don't. So that's my tie up there, and this is what I call the declaration. Like I said, it's almost as powerful as an affidavit because when you go read the details of what 28 U.S.C. is, 1746 Section 1, it'll actually state it has the force of an affidavit in there. So it's basically just stating, and this is right out of their, word for word. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America. Look, of America, not United States. The laws of the United States of America, that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed on this 27th day of the 4th month in the year of our Lord and Savior 2021. And then I do my signature. And then for good keeping, I add the mail fraud complaint in there because I want the judicial board to know that this isn't another one of the monkeys because, my God, look at this guy. He's already filed a mail fraud complaint. He's talking about filing a Securities Exchange Commission complaint for it's securities fraud. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can't write numbers on a piece of paper and securitize that, and not unless somebody accepts it. That I can do that if they want to accept it. That would be a promissory note. But if the other party doesn't want to accept it, it's not a note. It means nothing. So he can't just write numbers on a piece of paper either and make me accept it. If I don't accept it, it means nothing. So what he's doing is securities fraud. He's trying to create a security out of thin air. So I'm going to attach that. And look, and in my mail fraud complaint, what did you receive? Look, I received threats and extortion demand for money and forged and falsified documents. What did you expect? I expected nothing. I have no contract with David D. Dugan. In other words, if I don't have a contract with you, what are you doing sending me stuff through the mail? And it's always in a matter of your estate. Your estate is everything you own that's in your name. Your property, your dog. Everything's your estate. It's your property. And additional information, David D. Dugan created forged and falsified documents he used to threaten I am man in an attempt to extort money from me in violation of 18 U.S. codes. And these are the same ones I hit before. Now, what I'm also going to do with this, when I send this off to the mail fraud division right there, Criminal Investigation Service Center, when I send this off to them, I'm actually going to take these 3 statutes and I'm going to do a separate sheet. And I'm going to address each one in a separate paragraph. There's 3 statutes, so there's going to be 3 paragraphs addressing each one on why David D. Dugan fits 1342, 1341, and 876. And that document will probably go up tomorrow. I'll probably work on that either tonight or early tomorrow. I'll get that up there also. So this is what like I said, everybody does them different. And also, never forget, I always include my affidavit of status so that the board who gets this, when they see this is still going to catch their attention. And they're going to see, look, I am one of the people of the United States. I'm not one of the persons, I'm one of the people. And listen, the Constitution, here's the funny part. These acts that they're citing were created by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, okay? That was created by the Pennsylvania Constitution. So get that hierarchy in your head. You got the Pennsylvania Constitution, and from within that Pennsylvania Constitution, the legislature was created within that. And from that legislature, the borough was created. So now we're on rung 3. And then through the borough and through their ordinances and the codes, which we're now on rung 4, okay, they are now trying to claim that within that Pennsylvania Constitution, they've somehow garnered this authority to charge you taxes. Well, you're not a signatory to the Constitution, the state or the federal Constitution. It has no applicability to you. And that confuses people because they always say, why are you citing it? Because it applies to them. It's a rule book for them. It's sort of like them working for McDonald's and getting the McDonald's rule book. Here's the employee's workbook. The rule book. Here's what you do. Here's what you follow. I'm not an employee of McDonald's. I'm not an employee of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm not an employee of Beverly Park. So the rule books don't apply to me. All that rule book it's a fence around them that tells them how they must interact with us. And they're doing a real poor job of following that rule book. And that's what this is, and that's why I know certain people that have banged it for tens of millions of dollars. And I'm about to follow his lead because I'm going to follow the same way. Listen, I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I already know the wheel's been created and it works. So I'm going to follow his process. And that's why you'll probably see me quiet, and what you've seen me sort of quiet a little bit on the Telegram group. Because I'm digging down right now. I'm digging into 1983, and I'm putting this stuff together. Because hey, listen, I gave you guys multiple times to walk away. Multiple times I gave you to walk away. So now when I drop the hammer on your head, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And so that's why I'm taking my time with the stuff I'm doing. And so you always want to include your affidavit of status in there. So you just want to remove all presumptions of who you are, because everything they do is done under presumption. And this sounds funny, but that little seal scares them, because that attorney knows ain't no way he's coming into court and he's going to overcome you testifying. What's he going to say when I tell him I'm not a taxpayer, I'm not a resident, I'm not a citizen? What's he going to say? Oh, you are. I deemed you are. I decided you are. The legislature decided you are. Who decided I am? Steve said the obvious. How did you become a taxpayer? You don't become a taxpayer because you get a job or you buy a house. That has nothing to do with being a taxpayer. In order to be a taxpayer, you must be exercising an exercisable business privilege. Now, that doesn't mean you exercising a business privilege of your private use to sell stuff or whatever. That means that you've actually signed a licensing deal to get a license with them to operate under. And so if you don't have a license, you haven't signed a license, you're not exercising a taxable business privilege on your property, which means not a taxable entity. And another key thing you're going to learn about property taxes, because I know that's important to a lot of you people to challenge your property taxes, is go read your state tax code. That's what I was told by Steve. Go read it 3, 4, 5 times. Read it over and over again, your state tax code. You're going to be stunned at the stuff you find in there. And this is how Steve banged them over the head over and over again with their own codes. So go read your state tax code. Powerful stuff. When you understand, I know everybody likes to run from the statutes and all, but I'm telling you, if you want to get remedy, listen, I'm real good at making people go away. I've done that with a lot of people, a lot of things. We've gotten a lot of people to go away, and whether it's tax matters, traffic tickets, whatever, mass citations. But if you want to get paid, the only proof I've seen to date is that Title 42, 1983 is the only way to get paid. And I know there's been actually a number of people that have gotten paid this way, and they're just very quiet about it. They don't let it be known, but they've gotten paid. And this is how you do it. And once your paperwork's set up properly and you submit it properly, they can't come into court to answer you, because God forbid they lose that suit. Then all the other monkeys in your county can take your suit, erase your name and put their name in it, and they can't have that. So it'll come to a point where if you can show them you're competent and can file, a decent pleading against them, they're gonna come in and talk to you. They're gonna settle with you to make this go away, and that's what you want. And then you're free. When you could work that process, when you can work this process and get people to leave you alone, then you're free. Because listen, there's a lot of work goes into this. Listen, I know it's a lot of work. What do you think I'm doing? This is, I spent 2 hours just going through old emails today, and I didn't make a dent. And then I had to work on paperwork. I know it's a lot of work, but when you can do this process, and when you start to understand how the 42 1983 suit works, you become, I don't want to say untouchable, but pretty much untouchable. Because anybody comes at you, you're going to be able to know what and do what 99.9% of the other monkeys have no clue what to do. You're going to know how to hold them accountable. And when you can hold somebody accountable, that's where your freedom lies. Because all this stuff works on, all these people are bonded and insured. And when you start tapping that insurance bond with those bar grievances and the notice of claim and the criminal complaints, every time you file them, you're tapping that insurance bond. And it's sort of like uncle. At a certain point, he's got to say uncle. Because if they pull his insurance, he's done. The attorney's done. And it's the same thing with the township and the borough people. If you're filing against them, they also have insurance. And just like when I filed my $400,000 claim against the Beverly Park for stopping the roofing job, look what they did. They had a tattle on themselves, basically. They turned it over to their insurance company. So now the insurance company knows they have a $400,000 claim hanging over their head, which is now $500,000. So listen, that's gonna ring their insurance bell. I probably sent the rates up, and by the time I'm done with them, I know I'm definitely going to send their rates up, because I'm going to take a chunk out of them. Financially, I mean, nothing. When I say chunk, I don't mean anything physical. I'm talking financial. So listen, this is why we go through all this stuff and why we go through these processes. I know there's a lot of processes out there. This is down to, you don't need to go for a law school and get a law degree. And listen, you could execute bar grievances. You could execute notice of claims. You could execute affidavit of statuses, affidavit of facts. And what you're doing by doing that is you're getting your ducks in a row. And then when you start doing your criminal complaints, which you don't even realize as you're walking through this criminal process, doing state and federal criminal complaints, you're actually already building your 42 1983 suit. By the time you're through your criminal complaints, bang, you're ready to go with your 42 1983. Because the criminal complaints are filed usually with the district attorney or the attorney general for the state. So even though you file it with them, think of them as being separate, because I'm going to file these same criminal complaints in my 42 1983 suit also. The same ones I just cited that I'm going to give to the attorney general here and to the district attorney in other states. The same ones I give to him, I'm also going to have in it's a civil suit, even though everything's civil. Think about it that way. The criminal codes are still going to go in that civil suit, that 42 1983 suit. And I know that's what Steve does, and I know that's what others do. They put them in there because that's some lethal stuff in there. So you got two sets of criminal complaints running parallel. Think about it that way. And they say, well, why file with the district attorney or the state attorney general? Because I call them career enders. if one of them stick, like look what Randy did with Abbott in Texas, the governor of Texas. He got the criminal complaints in front of the grand jury. For Abbott, Abbott better be saying, God forbid he gets one of these criminal complaints to stick to me. He's not going to be governor no more, and he's going to be a felon. And that's the same way these people look at it, is when you have those criminal complaints dangling out there with the district attorney or the state's attorney general, these are swords hanging over their head. Okay, because if one of them stick, they're going down the tube. And, then you bring them in on the civil side with the same criminal complaints that they're going to have a problem with. And when you got that pleading written properly, they're not going to want to come. They're not going to want to come into court to face you, because they're not going to be able to face you. Like I said, if you go to court, you've done something wrong in your paperwork. You did something wrong in your pleading. That pleading should be so bulletproof and written up that way, so that by the time they look at it, they have that oh damn moment. We can't go into court. We're going to get crushed. And like I said, poor Steve can't get to a trial by jury. I don't think Steve's been to a trial by jury yet. Them guys keep settling with him because they can't come into court against them. And that's the level you want to be at, So and I don't mean to bang people, but stop going down the you're lost at sea and the trust, and get that stuff out of your head, please. There's a million places. If you want to go talk about that stuff, go talk about it in other groups. I can only tell you people what I know for facts that work. Okay, I know for facts that the affidavits work for getting people off you. Now, it doesn't mean every time you file affidavits it's going to work. It's like anything. I could get 10 people could do something, and 7 are successful and 3 are not successful. And it's for a multitude of different reasons. It has to do with their understanding. It may have been about who they're before. They got challenged in a way and they didn't know their stuff. And some people, some judges are tougher than other judges. So there's a million different variables. So there's no 100% anything. I can't say, hey, just because you file affidavits, this is going to work, perfectly. That's not how it is. And it's the same thing with anything. But when you file that 42-1983 suit and you got your ducks in order, it's going to work that way, because they're not going to be able to come in and answer you. So I'd rather see you. Don't waste your time with the you're lost at sea stuff and have those videos. Go on your federal district court website for your whatever federal district court has your area that's assigned to your area. And I said, I know you hate this term and people hate this term. Go look for the pro se manual up there and it's usually a 30 or 50 page guide, tells you how to file these suits. Go download it. Go read it. And then go jump on YouTube or go buy a book on how to file. Or listen, there's a multitude of stuff online on 42-1983 suits. And start reading this stuff and get familiar with it. And listen, all fear is a lack of knowledge. And the more you read this stuff and the more knowledge you get, I'm telling you, fear level is going to go away. Because you're going to know. You're not going to care. Like Steve said to me, he goes, like when I do record requests, he said, I hope they screwed them up. I hope they don't give me the information. He said, because I'm going to bang them with it. And that's where he's got a confidence level in himself that he knows, I'm going to grab these people by the nose and bounce them around. And when you're at that level, then you're free. Then you don't have to worry about any of this trust stuff, none of this crazy birth certificate and lost at sea and sign your name this way and do this flag. No, listen, stick to the basics, what works. And, I follow success. And, the stuff I did, a lot of stuff I've learned stuff from Randy Kelton, learned stuff from Brett Fountain. I've learned stuff from Steve Emerson, ton of stuff from Steve Emerson. And I've learned stuff basically just through the jurisdictionary course and blending that with other stuff I've learned and just sort of putting the pieces together. But I know the remedy lies in 42-1983. So don't waste your time with the other nonsense, please. Go start, if you really want to get remedy, go start learning the 42-1983 federal lawsuit process. All right, guys, take care, and I shall see you soon.